You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious!
Don, don't speak while we're recording, because you might say something you regret. And then when the microphone's on, and now Dr. James has just come in.
I'm glad he's come in.
Right, I'm glad you come in. Just before we start, because the doctor from Sydney is ringing in 5 minutes. A man, have you heard of that man, Bob Beecroft?
Yeah, he played for Fitzroy.
He did.
He came from Western Australia.
Well,
in our time of playing football, what's he written? A book?
He's written a book called Out of the Frying Pan into the Fire. It's not a synopsis, it's a story about him coming from, I think his parents were Latvian.
Beecroft.
Oh, his mother was, I've read some of it. Because he only sent it to me yesterday. I only received it yesterday, and I've never met him. And it's a book about Bobby Beecroft coming over and playing for Fitzroy.
Well, and, you know who else is doing it?
It got my attention because this was the opening paragraph. This was the opening. I thought I'll start at the beginning. Where else would you start? And it said, Shelley walked into the bedroom, flicked on the light and told me to turn the radio off. This was the second time in the space of 20 minutes. I was listening to a talkback show and I told her to turn the light off and go back to the patio and to leave me alone. A few minutes later I turned the radio off and was dozing off to sleep. The bedroom door opened and the light went on and Shelley was standing there with a 30-centimetre butcher's knife. Read on. So that's the opening part of it, and that gets your attention. You think, who is Shelley?
Who's Shelley?
Exactly. Who is Shelley, and why was she going to stab Bobby Beecroft? So that's what the book. And I read on, and I'm not telling you what I've read. Haven't read it all. But
now, a man also that Bob would have played against, we played against, Merv Kane
yes.
from Richmond. He's
yes.
also a writer,
yes.
and he's doing a story on McDonald, Tip and Woody.
Yes, good.
Anthony McDonald, Tip and Woody. So that's Merv's next book. So that's interesting, isn't it?
Well, Bobby Beecroft, there you are. I don't know where it's available. It's called Bob Beecroft, Out of the Frying Pan into the Fire, and I've read parts of it. He came over, he was brought over to play for Fitzroy and couldn't get a job they couldn't give him a sensible job, and he found that very frustrating, and he went on to be quite a player for the old Lions, Don. And we played against him, and I've never met him, but he sent me the book, and I texted him, and I said, well, thanks very much for sending it to me. I'll get through it at some stage. Have you ever heard of Jimmy Stewart, James, have you heard of Bob Beecroft?
No,
you're just a youngster. Well, Bob's, anyhow... I haven't
James,
read out who Shelley is and why she was going to stab him. And it's a bit like A Fortunate Life. Have you ever read A Fortunate Life by A.B. Facey?
No.
That is on the school curriculum. That is about a bloke who comes out here and leaves... What? Yeah, it comes out here.
Yep.
And has a shocking life, a tough, hard life, and thinks he's so fortunate to be on the planet. It's on the school curriculum. A.B. Facey, A Fortunate Life. And I'm telling you this now, Doc. If you get to the second last page of it, it is impossible to read the second last page without having a tear roll down your eye. I don't cry at many things. In fact, none.
I'll be going halfway through. I cry at the drop of a hat. I'll watch RSPCA.
I read the second last page of A.B. Facey's A Fortunate Life. It is impossible. And I sat there and I had tears coming down both my cheeks. Because if you just if you just realise what he said and why he said it after the whole book, it's extraordinary. So that's not like A.B. Facey, but that's a book that Bobby Beecroft, Beecroft said. I don't know where you get it. He was an All-Australian. Were you an All-Australian, Don?
No.
No. Of course, we're in a different club, you and I. I was in an All-Australian. But wasn't an All-Australian.
Is that when you did the blind turn?
It was too.
Oh,
that's right.
He made an idiot of himself.
Because we're just toying. We're toying with the opposition because there wasn't any opposition. Out of the Frying Pan, Bob Beecroft. It's I don't know where you buy it, and I don't know how much it is, but it doesn't matter.
Can I ask Jimmy a question, a sensible one?
While the doc's ringing in from Sydney.
Jimmy.
Yeah.
they're legalising, or it's going before Parliament. Is it state Parliament or federal Parliament? No, it'd have to be state Parliament. Legalising. Oh no, dropping.
Allowing you to drive with THC in the system.
Allowing you to drive. It's going before Parliament today, I think. Is that right?
Yep. So fingers crossed that comes into play, because at the moment the medicinal cannabis, especially THC, is the only prescribed medication where you can be locked up for driving with it in your system. There's no other medication on the market where you can be prescribed medication by a doctor where you can lose your license for having it in your system. So it's ridiculous that people can, THC, yes, at a high dose, you shouldn't be driving. But at a dose that someone took the night before to help them with a bit of sleep, you're not going to be intoxicated at all or inebriated at all.
Okay. So there's two questions I raised. Is there inconsistencies? Is there other states where this is legalised?
Tasmania is the only one. So Tasmania, you can drive with some THC in your system if you are prescribed medicinal cannabis. That was, I heard originally, because they didn't submit, or it was accidentally done or something like that. But anyway, Tassie you can drive with THC in your system. Other states, no. So hopefully they come online. The problem is they don't have a way of testing the level of THC. They've only got a way of testing positive or negative. So
what about the other one that I take to help me or aid me in my sleep?
Yeah, so that's got a little bit of THC in it. So that's half THC, half CBD. So that one, as I would have said to you, don't drive for at least 8 hours after having that one, because not that you wouldn't be able to drive, that you would still have THC
Well, I don't have
present.
any ill effects from it
No.
of a morning.
No.
But it really does help me. I didn't take it last night and I didn't sleep, but it really does help me sleep. And
so you feel perfectly fine to drive the next day after taking it. Yeah, that's the thing.
There's no hangover like I have had experience with various sleeping
pills.
tablets. I feel really dopey with a lot of those, but with this oil, no, I wake up as good as gold. But it's not in my system, or still is in my system?
So in your system, it'll still be present inactive. So it would still be in your blood and urine. So that's how athletes can get done months later after being at a party where they've been found to have presence of THC in their system.
What about Peter Boll? He was accused of taking performance-enhancing drugs. His second sample proved that he wasn't, or something. Did you read that?
No.
What? Peter Boll, you know?
Yeah, I know exactly what
he's been exonerated.
Yeah, because the second sample wasn't up.
And what did he have in it? What was it, THC?
No.
I was going to say, because THC is hardly a performance-enhancing molecule
so
anyway.
How in God's name can you have a drug testing agency find someone and then give the publicity that he's taken drugs and then say, oh, no, I'm sorry, we made a mistake? Makes you wonder about the Essendon Football Club all those years ago. Now, we're waiting for the doc. Do you think I had to tell the doc from Sydney?
The doc here.
The other doc.
Shut up. Do you think I had to tell the doc every second week that he's going to ring in? Because he's meant to ring in now. He's late. What'll I do? I'll ring.
Shoot him a message.
I'm going to ring him.
No.
You'd be what, Don?
I'd just let it go through to the keeper.
Would you? Or
Yes.
what? So I have to. And where is he? What's his name? Ben. Dr. Ben. Go on, speak.
Other interesting news you might have seen last week was the change down scheduling of psilocybin, aka magic mushrooms, and MDMA to be now down scheduled to a Schedule 8.
Oh, no, you got to put that in layman's terms.
So that just means that psilocybin and MDMA previously were Schedule 9, which means they could only be accessed to use in clinical trials. Now they've been down scheduled to Schedule 8 as of July the 1st, which means that through an authorised prescribing psychiatrist, the public can access psilocybin and MDMA.
Only a psychiatrist or a doctor?
Psychiatrists are the only ones that can do it at the moment.
Right. Why can't...
because I watched a documentary. I watched a documentary on that. What about the other one, LSD?
Yeah, not yet, no. Because the LSD treatment is too long. When you give someone LSD, you need to be with them for probably upwards of 12 hours, and that just financially isn't viable.
But they were using LSD back in the middle to the mid-60s, weren't they?
Yep. And it still would have some medical applications. However, financially, to have a psychiatrist or a doctor to sit there with you for 12 hours while you're having your journey isn't financially viable. So that's why they've gone for
Okay, so what are they recognising, or what do they believe that the the mushrooms or whatever, how do they help?
So what they do,
Or what properties have they got that help?
Yep. So, and by no means am I advocating to go and do this recreationally. This is all should be done in clinical settings and that kind of thing. But what happens is when someone has a medication like psilocybin, so what it does is it detaches or unplugs what we call our default mode network of thinking. So over time, our brains, as we develop and through society and through things that have happened to our life and beliefs and all that kind of stuff, we develop a way of thinking. And so when someone has chronic depression, they have a mode of thinking where any thought that pops into our head, it takes a negative connotation and they can't get out of that loop. They're stuck in this loop of every thought becomes negative, blah, 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 blah. Now, you can do lots and lots of psychology. You can take antidepressants and you're only going to have a minimal benefit. And what they do is if you are treatment resistant, they'll actually do electroconvulsive therapy where they shock your brain to try and start it. Mushrooms, on the other hand, what they will do is when you experience them, you can unplug your default mode network, your train of thought, okay? So the way you used to think about everything negatively, say in depression, it detaches those thoughts, so it detaches that mode of thinking. So your thoughts and things that you are thinking about all of a sudden don't have that negative jump
Bring
into them.
some mushrooms in here one day.
Yeah, okay.
Boil them up and give them to Don.
No, I've watched them in Bali.
You what? This is different stuff.
This-
The doc's got, I presume, he's got the proper clinically.
No.
I don't know.
Hang on. There's
No,
a
I'm
couple
not
of things
saying
come
you've
out.
got them, but
Just hang on.
get on with it,
Well,
Don.
shut
This is
up.
How boring is
Just
this?
shut up. So you're saying that our negative thoughts come from what, our conditioning or our experiences growing up?
Yep, both, everything. So everything we've gone
You
through.
don't think you've got a predisposition to think negatively? You're born with it? Do you think we are conditioned?
Yep. There would be some genetic, because anxiety runs in families and things like that. But the way overall depression comes from our upbringing and from things that we have experienced in our life and our train of thought. And now, if you imagine that our thoughts, they fire and so pathways into negative thoughts are firing more rapidly and more actively. So that path is the one we use more. When you take mushrooms, new pathways fire, and then that creates new pathways.
Here's a principle to live by, Don. Here's a principle to live by. Always expect the worst and hope for the best. Therefore, you don't get ahead of yourself. Don't be too ebullient and too up about life. Always expect that things can go wrong and then work to make sure they don't. This I say. Now, now, Doc, bring some fucking mushrooms in here. If it's one
what
thing
type
that
of
might
mushrooms are they?
Fucking.
But
if
we can't.
If there's what you call me? If there's one thing that might get us on a better level term of communication and being socially compatible, would be that you get onto some mushrooms.
It would be an interesting podcast if we record it.
Oh, it would be
So hang on,
different than the one.
I want to go down this track a little bit more. So you're talking about LSD before it's 12 hours.
Yep.
How long does the mushrooms?
Mushrooms can last.
And how many treatments do you need? And how long are you sedated or under?
So evidence shows that with one single treatment of psilocybin lasting between 4 to 8 hours can have a profound benefit on treatment-resistant depression. One single case. One single
But
dose.
hang on, is somebody talking to you when you're having this?
No.
I find this hard to believe.
Having someone telling you when you're having mushrooms, did he say?
Yeah, well, how do you condition yourself or unturn your
Well,
brain?
So it's all done in your mind. Okay, so it's all internally, and what you're doing is you're revisiting or re-experiencing thoughts that you have with the unbiasedness of the brain.
But somebody's got to stimulate that.
No. It all comes up. I know this sounds a bit wishy-washy, but the plants guide you in what you need to see.
Guide you?
The mushroom and that kind of thing. It all unravels in your brain.
What do you keep? How much intelligence would you have to be to work out what he's saying? You
cannot ask an intelligent question.
Do you know what LSD is? It makes you psychedelically think outside the square. You see things crawling up the ceiling. I mean, it just takes your brain in another direction, Don. And if you have
But
a brain
I find
in the first
this hard
place,
to rejig your brain. This is what I'm finding, having real difficulty trying to.
So these medicines can put your brain back into a state of neuroplasticity, meaning the same way when you're a child and you absorb all the surroundings and you start creating these neural pathways. You can do that with these.
Don't go on.
No,
Ask another
I'm
question in a
relating
minute.
this to young kids, and I understand
Don't
what
ask
you're
him any
saying.
more
Yeah,
questions about
shut
it,
up.
Don. Seriously, how long can we talk about this?
Okay.
We can.
Well, show the doc the metal rings you've been grappling with. That will, if you had some magic mushrooms, you might be able to separate those. Put the rings up. Barney McCusker, the doctor, gave us these so Don wouldn't fiddle with the pens. He spent an hour trying to get them apart.
Yep.
Someone can get them apart just easily, but Don needs mushrooms to get them apart. It's a fantastic exercise, and once you get them apart, see if you can put them together again. I've got them apart.
You wouldn't even try.
I've got them apart.
Bullshit.
Absolutely.
You would
get them
force them apart. There would
No,
be
you
nothing
can't
supple.
You can't force them.
I know, but you would.
You can't force them.
You'd have a screwdriver and hammer,
Oh, you dumbass.
and then you bang it back into shape.
So, do you know who has walked in? We've got a cast of thousands. She has come in. I said she gets aroused mentally. She's now in deep conversation.
You haven't got control of this show.
John Locko, who just
You're
walked
thrown.
in. John Locko's-
You are thrown
John-
because you're not in control.
How about Locko, who is the ex-mayor of Brighton? He came in and he heard us speaking about Bob Beecroft. And he said from the wings here, he said, I'll tell you what Bob Beecroft did. I said, John, please, you never heard of Bob Beecroft. He said, Bob Beecroft kicked 8 goals against John.
St Kilda in the second game of season 9.
In the second game of season 1976, he kicked 8 goals against St Kilda down at the Junction Oval. This is John Locko just said that. You didn't. You
didn't even know him.
I've never met Bob Beecroft.
No, you didn't even know your teammates. So
I'm just talking about Bob Beecroft kicked 8 goals. That's what Locko said.
I told you he was a good full forward. You didn't take me.
I knew he was a good full forward.
I don't know about tough player, but he was a good player.
Well, don't say he wasn't tough.
Well,
He's
he
just
said he's a
written
very
book.
tough player.
Well, he might have been tough. He was a tough player.
He
Locko
never
says.
whacked you.
You don't have to whack people to be tough, Don.
Oh, don't you?
No, shit, no. No, tough doesn't mean you whack people. Tough means you go in undeterred,
What type of player would you call yourself? Because you whacked everyone from behind.
Not always from behind.
You did.
Not
so I
always.
do not remember anyone you hit straight on the.
Oh, well, you didn't play in all the games I played.
I've watched you.
I played against you. I hit you from behind.
Oh yeah, plenty of times.
I did. Well, not plenty of times.
You did.
One or
You
two.
jump in and you.
That's
bash.
right. Jump in. That's right.
God.
Now, Phoebe has walked in. Phoebe has just arrived, and she comes because she knows the doc is coming on from Sydney, who I rang just while you were speaking shit to the doc here about magic mushrooms. I spoke to the doc, and he said, could I come on in 10 minutes, which is now 3 minutes away? And this made me worried because I spoke to him hoping I could put him to air, and I couldn't even get the phone to go through the speakers. So this will be good when he rings in to see if we can get that to work. So he's ringing in shortly, Don. Have you got? And I'm going to ask him about you interviewing Jodie as part of a guest, down the line. Introducing her probably Jodie Spears. Is that her name?
I'm a little intimidated by Jodie.
Well, why don't you have some mushrooms before you speak to her, and you could ask her a whole raft of questions that she wouldn't know how to answer. Hello, Jodie. I'm on mushrooms at the minute, so pardon me whatever I might say to you. First of all, have you been wearing... you could ask her anything.
So how are you? How do you know you need to have treatment with mushrooms?
Geez, you're back on the mushrooms.
I am. I'm fascinated by
it's
this.
such an interesting topic. So, what that's going to be applied for is treatment resistant. Okay, treatment resistant mental health conditions. So at the moment, if you've got treatment resistant depression, what they do at the moment is called ECT, electroconvulsive therapy.
Yes.
Where they go and electrocute your brain.
That's right. I know about that.
Yeah. And, people get this 4 consecutive days for 5 weeks in a row. So one treatment of psilocybin, because it can put your brain back into neuroplasticity and create new pathways, new ways of thinking. So essentially you're getting yourself out of a
so is ECT, is that the only form? There's no medications as such?
Well, they've tried all medications and then they end up at ECT. So they would have tried all
ECT,
antidepressants.
from my information, is very confronting.
Yeah, it's barbaric as hell. It's horrible to watch.
And I think it's a little...
Hey, I got the thing undone.
Oh, bullshit.
Yeah, there you go. I've done your... There you go.
That's right.
Well, can you put it back together?
Yeah, no,
Yes, I can.
No, but it's a terrific puzzle, isn't it? It's Don Spit now doing it. Hasn't got it.
So...
It is amazing.
Hang on, just getting back to this
You're a dumbass,
ECT.
Yep.
The film One Flew Over,
Yes.
we've seen it many times, but
Yep.
even back in the 70s, there was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yep.
That's exactly shock treatment.
Yeah, he has a lobotomy as well. So he has...
Oh, did he?
Yeah. I think he has part of his brain removed. But what they do with ECT is I can't remember if they show ECT in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but... Interestingly, when you said you read that book at school, we had to read One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and no one read the book. We all just watched the movie, which was a common thing to do.
So, Doc, let's hope the Doc from Sydney rings in. This will curtail this nonsense that he's talking about. He will ask you chapter.
Because I'm fascinated. I am fascinated by it.
How many
You're
times
as
can he explain
deep as
what
a
it means?
dirty little puddle.
Deep
There's
as
no depth to your persona.
Yeah,
Shallow
it's
hell.
You're very shallow.
Shallow
That is a
hell,
good movie, that
Don.
movie.
Shallow hell. So, Don, an hour and a half it took him to get those apart. He's got them
Have you
apart.
put it back together?
No,
No,
you
not
got to
yet.
put them back together.
just
It's
a-
fantastic exercise. This
I
is
bet
where
he
your
can't put
brain's
it-
at, Don. I've got to part and put it together several
Bullshit.
times. I have. It takes a while, but there is a way to do it.
Yeah.
Here he comes. Now let's hope. Let's hope that this works. Jesus, let's hope this works. Oh, please. Hello. No, hang on. Again, speak. Speak, Doc. Oh, fuck. Speak.
Don't.
Doc.
Terribly sorry I'm late.
No, hang on, mate. I'm trying to get you on air. Shelley! Hang on. Hang on, Doc. Go on. You speak to us, please. No, you've got to come through. Here she comes. Doc, I hope you're there. Shelley, I can't. Isn't this extraordinary? In 2020. Shelley, we've got the Doc on the phone. I can't get him through. What's happened to him? You there? What have I done?
Is it that one?
Oh, Jesus H. Christ.
Don't blaspheme.
I didn't have your sound turned up for your mobile phone app. You there? Oh,
He's hung up on you.
Please, come on. Are you there?
This
Are
is
you
much
there,
better
Doc?
than the radio we were having, hey, Don?
Oh,
I think our chat was much better than this.
What else?
So anyway, yes.
That's it
So
there.
the mushrooms.
Did he hang
it's
up?
Fantastic. It's amazing. So that podcast, that
He's there.
show I told you to
Why-
watch,
why-
So,
that show I told you to watch, How to Change Your Mind.
yes.
Yeah, so they look at the LSD, psilocybin, MDMA, and
And that's on YouTube. No, that's a
There he
document.
is. He gets-
Oh.
Oh, Jesus, that's
Hello. Go on. Hello. Is this you? Oh. What?
What was
I
the
can't hear him.
music?
I can't hear him. Why can't I hear him?
I don't know.
Oh,
No, it should be working.
it should be working.
Yeah, it's all working. Hang on 1 second.
He might be his end. It's on. Roadcaster. It's on. I reckon it's his end. Jesus. What's wrong? Oh, hey, Dinkum. I'm going to ring him on his mobile phone. So it's just a Ben Ford and mobile. Let's see if that works. Hang on. This is going well.
this is brilliant.
This is going well. See, it says it's gone through. Have I got this on? What have I done? Have I got
Can
this
you hear
not
him
turned up?
on the phone? Can you put your ear to it and see if you can hear him?
No? Okay.
Okay, now it's on hold. No,
Ben.
now it's back to that one.
Hello?
Okay.
Well, I can hear you, but I can't. We can't hear you. I can just hear you faintly. What's wrong, Shelley?
I don't know. Everything's normal.
Don't we have to? Well, look here. What do I have to put on there?
Roadcaster. That's what we do every week.
Doc.
Tell him to ring back from his mobile. Maybe it's a landline thing.
Oh,
What is
can
it?
you ring back from your mobile, Doc? We'll ring you. Doc. Oh,
Anyway, Don, what else have we got going on?
Yeah,
We'll take over for a bit, eh?
Hang on, and then try again.
yep. I heard you then. What? Go on.
Is that him there? No, now he's gone.
Gee whiz. So, in other news, it's Medicinal Cannabis
What?
Awareness Week this week. Did you know that?
No. So
Medicinal Cannabis Awareness Week. So, started by Lucy Haslam, who is...
You're hearing... Doc, are you hearing us?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
It's
Well,
not connecting through here.
It's not connecting through our
Hold it to the
earphones, but would he be coming on if I can't hear him?
Can you hear him now?
Can you hear? Can I hear you, Doc? Oh,
Put him on speaker and just hold him into the microphone here.
what do you mean? Put him on speaker.
Like, yeah.
Hello.
Ben, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Oh no, I can hear him now, can't I?
Yeah, because I've got him through the microphone here.
Oh, because you can hear him through there.
Yeah. Very good. How you doing?
I'm good, mate. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. I've taken over now. Sam's got no idea what's going on.
Do you want me to ring in? Why don't I ring in?
No. It's all good, mate. We're good. We got you going well now. Can everyone hear it? Yeah, we're going.
yes, good as gold.
Well, why you got to hold the phone up
It's
to the
okay.
microphone?
We can't get it through.
We'll
Is
work
it
it out.
if I ring in, are you confident you can connect it or
no,
not?
we're not confident at all.
Okay.
Okay. We've got
I'm
you
just
now,
on-
mate. It's all good.
Well, the
I'm
doc's
on the mobile, boys. I'll have to keep it to about 15 minutes or so, I reckon.
righto. Well, the doc's holding the phone up to the microphone. This is like Jerry built stuff. You think we're working? The computer's
kidding,
running
aren't
on wood and coke. That isn't coal, coking coal. So now, Doc. First of all, this is
So
ridiculous.
hang on. I want to know technically how this is working at your end.
The doc,
So-
James Stewart, is standing there with my phone forced up to the microphone so that
mate,
the speakerphone on the
seriously?
phone is going through the microphone. And Shelley is working feverishly down here to work out why we can't do it the proper way.
Is that your other phone? Is that
Why don't you give me one more chance at ringing in on the normal number and let's see if we can get it started and then you can
Righto.
start.
Call on the normal number.
I'll ring in now. Okay.
Okay, he's going to call on the normal number.
Is this not working? Hang on, let's quickly unpair the phones. Right.
So yeah, Don, as I was saying, Medicinal Cannabis Awareness Week started by Lucy Haslam, whose story was her son had stage 4 bowel cancer in 2016, just before that, and spread to liver, couldn't be operable through surgery, so he was getting a lot of chemotherapy, couldn't eat, losing weight, having a horrible quality of life. Her husband was the head drug enforcer for New South Wales Police, so always very anti-drugs. They tried everything under the planet to give that poor boy some quality of life. Someone suggested cannabis. They found some cannabis somewhere, rolled a joint and gave him some cannabis, and they just said he could see his colour returning to him straight away. He started
Just a
eating.
minute.
Has it worked?
No?
His quality of life improved. He only lived 2 more years, unfortunately, but his quality of
Seriously.
life through those 2 years was absolutely amazing. So she started.
Hello?
There we go. We're on.
Doc?
Yeah.
Now, I'm telling you,
Okay.
this is your end. You've
What do you
rung,
mean?
You've rung on a landline.
It's working.
Yes, I
now. It's
have.
good. Yeah.
Well, I can hear you now. We
Yeah.
can hear you now, but this was you. Because I normally ring in on my mobile phone, or you ring in on your mobile phone, don't you?
No, I don't. I always ring on this number, Sam. I think the average person listening would recognise that this is a fault that would be more likely to be occurring at your end than my end, with the greatest of respect. And you know I have the greatest of respect. And can I make a suggestion? I think you need to appoint Don Scott as the head of engineering on the podcast.
We're appointing Don Scott as the head of nothing. Don is a...
Yeah, no, and what you do, you get him a hard hat, right? He's got a measuring tape, and he always has an extension cord over the shoulder, and he just comes in and he uses his brilliance to sort out any technical issue that you might have.
Don't worry about a hard hat. He sits here with a hard on. That's why most of his blood goes out of his cranium and into his knob. Now, Doc, listen to me, Doc. You've been,
sir.
first of all, I suggested that just before we get on to Brittany Higgins, because you've had a huge day in the press about Brittany Higgins saying that we, the taxpayer, have paid more than... where's Phoebe? Christ, Phoebe only comes in here
Look,
because you're on, and she's over and sitting on a couch over here.
I can give you the background to all of that, Sam. So, and look, before I go through the background of the whole story, where did I get involved in it? I made a throwaway comment on air this week that it was my information that Brittany Higgins had received substantially more than the $3 million that had been reported as a payout. Brittany Higgins very quickly contacted us and said that's not true. So I then went on air straight away and said, I acknowledge that Brittany Higgins is telling me that is not true. This is what she's telling me. I also pointed out that there's no way of knowing, right? Because unless Brittany Higgins is able to show us what the payout was or someone else is able to confirm it, then there's no real way of knowing. But I acknowledge that Brittany Higgins would be in a better position to know compared to me, so I acknowledged that straight away. But it didn't stop a million people from coming after me on Twitter, which is fair enough. That's what it's there for. And people were kind of suggesting that I'd done the wrong thing in talking about this issue. But I think that when you have a court case where there was no solid outcome, we know that trial was abandoned, and we know that Brittany Higgins decided that she couldn't go through with another one. And when a payout of that kind of size is settled, I think that there is a public interest in people knowing, all right, well, how much taxpayers' money was spent on all of this. Different if there was a guilty verdict, because people would naturally say, all right, well, this happened at work. She was a Commonwealth employee working for a minister, and a guilty verdict has been returned in a court of law. But that's not what happened in this case.
But, Doc, if I may, you wouldn't mention that on your radio show because you would be given legal advice that you shouldn't say that unless you are absolutely certain that what you said is correct.
No. All I said on the figure was that I think people would be shocked if they knew the true figure is higher than what had been reported. Brittany Higgins has told me that that's not true, and I acknowledge the feedback that I got from Brittany Higgins, and I haven't seen a piece of paper, and no one else has. I mean, it is the first time that Brittany's come out and put a figure on it, so to speak, because she said, no, it's less than. So it became a higher, lower kind of game. But look, I was only going off a source of mine who had reported to me that it was substantially higher. And when I said that, I didn't kind of make a big song and dance about it. It was a throwaway comment at the end of a comment piece where I just said, look, it's my information that it's substantially higher than $3 million.
So she called you bluff?
No, well, she wrote to us straight away and said, it's not, it's lower. So I acknowledge the fact that Brittany Higgins has rejected that suggestion, and I can't come up with a piece of paper to show exactly what she was paid. And
so have you got in touch with the man?
Brittany can, if Brittany chooses to, Brittany can come out and say, all right, I'll show you the piece of paper. I'll show you how much I was paid.
So have you got in touch with the man who suggested this wasn't the case?
Oh, well, I'm not saying whether it was a man or a woman, Sam,
sorry.
But yeah, I mean, look, I'm not able to prove what it was, and you know what? To a degree, whether it's 2 million or 3 million or 4 million or 5 million or 6 million, I think that is to a degree beside the point. I think the main issue here is the lack of a guilty verdict, a man who claims that he was innocent, and I don't for one moment make any judgment on whether it happened or whether it didn't happen. It's not my business to say any of that. And I do admire the courage of Brittany Higgins in confronting all of these issues, standing up in front of groups of people and telling her story, which is obviously vastly different to the story told by the accused, who has since walked away from that court case without a guilty verdict. But look, I acknowledge that Brittany Higgins says that what I was speculating about wasn't true. So, Brittany's got a right to say that. And I very, very quickly made that comment on air. I wanted my listeners to be certain about the fact that Brittany Higgins had a very different point of view compared to what I was being told. And we changed the headline on the story on our website, 2gb.com, because she was concerned about the headline. So I did what I could as soon as I could to respond to the information that she passed forward to us.
Oh, beautifully done, Doc. You've run for cover, and rightly so.
Well, in a 3.5-hour live radio program, there are some things, when I know something, when I say, look, I've got the document in front of me, then we will publish a document up on our website and we'll encourage people to go and see it. And so we'll make clear that there is evidence to back this up. When it's a he said, she said, when it's one version and another version, then I am always happy to acknowledge what someone else is saying about it, because in the absence of black and white evidence, a piece of paper that says a figure on it, it really does come down to different version of events.
This is why you're a star, Doc, because you're across it all.
Now, Doc, I was going to actually bring this up today on our podcast, Brittany Higgins, but the question I had was why was she paid $3 million?
Or less than
why
$3
was
million.
Okay, why was she
Or
compensated?
more than $3 million. Yeah.
Yes, so I had a question mark against the $3 million.
Yeah, look,
why was she compensated if there was no outcome with regard to the trial?
Well, the only people who could answer that are the people within the federal government or the Commonwealth agencies that signed off on that compensation payment. They're the only people who can answer that question, and they haven't answered it. So it's really a mystery. It's a mystery as to how much she was paid. It's a mystery surrounding the circumstances in which the payment was made, or the thinking of the people who decided that they were going to make that payment. I'd also point out that it was the former Prime Minister Scott Morrison who stood up in Parliament when Brittany Higgins was sitting in the public gallery, and he said, "What happened to you in this place?" And I called out Scott Morrison at the time to say, well, hang on a moment, there's a court case going on. You know that people are innocent until proven guilty. So, look, there've been plenty of people who've been speculating around this story because the only two people who know what happened inside that office that night are Brittany and Bruce.
So, Doc, if there was no outcome and no one was recorded as having a case against them, why didn't the bloke get compensated for loss of face?
Well, he is now pursuing legal action. He's pursuing legal action against the ABC and Channel 10, I believe, and there might be some other media outlets, including potentially News Corp as well. I'd have to double check all of that, but he is seeking compensation through defamation action at the moment through his lawyers against various media outlets over the way they portrayed the case. So, look, it's a really tricky one. It's a very tricky story.
Now, Phoebe is... I'm looking at Phoebe. Come here, Phoebe. You wanted to ask...
Now, listen, I've got a challenge for Phoebe and for Sam and for Don, right? Have you guys got a piece of paper or a pen in front of you in any way?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, because I had on my radio program this morning, because we've got an election coming up in a month from now in New South Wales. So I had the Education Minister and the Shadow Education Minister in the studio this morning, and we went through all of the important issues, and then at the end of it, I said, I wonder how you guys would go with a little bit of a quiz, right? Because we have this thing called NAPLAN, right, where all of the kids are tested in New South Wales to work out their level of knowledge. So I read out a Year 7 NAPLAN maths question, and I had the question in front of them, just like the Year 7 kids would, and I asked them whether or not they wanted to partake in a bit of a fun quiz at the end of the interview. So do you reckon you guys would be able to answer this very simple question? Well, not so simple, because one of them got the question wrong in the quiz. One of them failed to answer the question correctly. If I asked you three the question, do you reckon you'd be able to answer it?
Well, how would we know that until you ask us?
Okay. Well, have you got a...
Yes, we
Have you got a pen and a pad and everything ready?
Yes,
okay. All right. Okay. So here we go. I'm going to read it to you right now. And this was put to them on the show today. Right. And now all of a sudden I can't find the correct
Right. Now, so while you're finding it, Don, we suggested, wants to interview Jody as a keynote interview. Could you arrange that?
An interview between my wife, Jodie Spears, and your mate, Don Scott.
Yes, because we interview people every week on this forum, and Don would like to interview Jodie, and I said, I reckon Jodie might jump at that as long as I'm not involved.
Well, no, I don't think she's got an issue with you.
Oh, of course
I think she's got an issue with us. I think she is resentful of the special relationship that I have with you guys. I think she's jealous.
Yeah, well, Don wants to probe.
Nicely played, Ben.
Hey, Fee, how are you?
I'm good. Nice to hear your voice.
Well, give us the puzzle.
My wife might be becoming bitter and twisted over my relationship with you people, because she watches me. I've got a hammock out in the backyard, and I lie there in the hammock and I listen back to the podcast every Wednesday, and I laugh away and whatever. And I think deep down, she's a funny woman, my wife, but I think deep down she's resentful of the fact that I laugh harder at the podcast than I do at her joke.
Don will bring the humour out in it, because he's a very, very humorous man, Don. He can ask us some questions that she's never even contemplated answering.
Give us the
question. Now,
question.
Here's the question. You ready?
Oh.
Pears cost $4 per kilogram. Ben buys 4.15 kilograms of pears. How much does Ben pay for the pears? I'm going to read it again for you. So the pears cost $4 per kilogram. Ben buys 4.15 kilograms of pears. How much does Ben pay for the pears?
So he buys a sixth. He buys.
Just hold on, hang on.
Just to repeat that once more, he buys $4. The pears are $4 a kilo, and he buys 4.15 kilos. How much does he pay?
Yep. How much does he pay? So I had the education minister and the shadow education minister, and if you want to watch
about
the awkward moment,
$4.20.
Bum bum.
Well, for 15.
Yes.
15
What did he
is
buy?
a sixth of is a sixth of 100. So
No, he'd pay $4.15, wouldn't he?
$4.15.
$16. He
4.15.
pays 16 because he's got 4 kilos, so it's $4 a kilo. So he's at least paying $16. $16
Oh,
and
I see.
$16.70.
Ooh,
Around there
close.
somewhere. What's
Yes, very good question. We just assumed we just didn't do
It
the
is-
4 4s of 16. No.
It's $16.60.
16.60? Yeah, because it's it is too. Yeah, because 40 cents per. Yep.
No,
So 16.60. What did I say? 70? No, 16.60.
Because we didn't multiply 4 by 4. We just assumed it was a very good question. That
Well, do you know what? The shadow education minister in New South Wales, Prue Carr, she stumbled on it and she wrote down $4.15.
Yep, that's
But
right.
she
That's
didn't
what I
really.
did.
She didn't kind of work it out. She just filled in the blank spot.
Yeah.
Whereas the minister, Sarah Mitchell, and this is all on video. If you want to watch it, it's up on 2GB.com. She actually sat down and she did all of the sums. She wrote it out. I gave them plenty of time, and she came up with the correct answer, $16.60.
Yeah,
and I
cool.
wasn't doing it as a gotcha. I was just saying, look, I'm sure the school kids would be encouraging me to do this, considering that you both expect them to sit down and do these NAPLAN tests, and this is a Year 7 numeracy question,
Year 7.
non-calculator, so the kids aren't allowed to use a calculator. It was one of those moments where I think they probably were regretting agreeing to do a little fun quiz at the end of the interview.
It's very, very good. It's a bit like saying you've got 2 coins, a 10-cent coin and a 5-cent coin, and they add up to 15 cents, but one of them is not a 10-cent coin. What are the 2 coins?
Huh?
You've got a 10-cent coin and a 5-cent coin. 2 coins add up to 15 cents, but one of them is not a 10-cent coin.
just said
What are the 2 coins?
I don't know.
Well, one of them's not a 10-cent coin, but the other is.
Oh dear.
Oh, my Lord.
It's the same as clear thinking. It's just clear
Okay.
thinking. We've given
What
Don...
about this one then? What about this one? And Fee, you are the person, the journalist who will absolutely blitz this one. But don't feel embarrassed, anyone, if you get it wrong, because this is one that my old man John Fordham used to do to us when we were kids. So here we go. The yolk of the egg is white, or the yolk of the egg are white?
Is.
No,
I'm sorry. The yolk of the egg is yellow.
Yellow.
Yes. The yolk
You
of the
got it.
egg is yellow.
You
yes.
got it. Okay, I got another one for you. Here we go. You know that a tie or a pocket handkerchief. What's the material that they'd usually be made of?
Silk.
Cotton.
What do cows drink?
Milk.
No.
Water.
Water.
Now, Doc, stay Doc.
Ben, you're going to make
yeah,
fools of all of us.
You've just got to not think about this, but just what your immediate reaction to this. Say shop, as in, where you buy things. Say shop 3 times quickly.
Shop,
What?
3 times quickly.
No, fair enough. Just say shop 3 times quickly. Go on.
Shop.
What do you do when you come to a green light?
Stop.
Okay. Good one.
That's very, very good. Now listen, how are you, Fee? What's gossip in Melbourne? Fill me in.
Well, I was actually going to ask you a question, which I'd mentioned to Sam earlier. Ben, tell me about this guru bloke who apparently is wanting to run for a seat in the New South Wales election.
Well, I've got a bit of an issue there at the moment because there is a police matter underway, and I'm apparently going to be a potential witness in that case. So I'm not able to talk about that individual because I've been advised by police not to. So I'll give you an explanation that doesn't talk about any individual and just the situation at large. But this is the freedom movement, the sovereign movement. These are the people, you might have seen some of the videos where the police pull them over and say, can I see your licence? And they say, no, I don't have to show you my licence. I'm sovereign. I'm not part of your society. And they think they don't have to pay taxes, they don't have to pay council rates. And it's kind of the leftovers from the freedom movement during lockdowns. And we can understand why people were so upset during lockdowns and they were going out there protesting because our liberties have been attacked. And I totally understand why people were angry about that. But now that lockdowns are over, you've still got some of these people who still believe that they are going to somehow overthrow the government. So can you believe that outside the Governor-General's residence at Yarralumla in Canberra, every day for the last year, there's a small group of people who gather there with a loudspeaker and a microphone and they scream messages across the lake to the Governor-General because they want the Governor-General and the Defence Force to join them and bring down the government. Now, they don't care whether the government is Labor or Liberal or anything else. It's just this idea of sovereign people who don't believe in the traditional structures of society and somehow think that they are above them. Yeah, I mean,
Anarchy.
you know, look, I feel sorry for those who lost their jobs during COVID, and I've gone into bat for those people. And I also have used my radio program to highlight some of the vaccine injuries and some of the other things out there. Vaccine mandates. Can you believe in New South Wales, and I don't know what the story is in Victoria, but in New South Wales, we still have vaccine mandates for firefighters. So how crazy is this? If you're an unvaccinated firefighter, you're not allowed to go into your fire station. You're not allowed to work. But if the vending machine breaks down in the fire station or the dunny breaks, then a plumber or an electrician or a vending machine repair person who's unvaccinated is able to go in there and fix whatever the problem is, but the firefighters aren't able to go in on their own fire station. And would anyone give a stuff if their home was burning down, if their family members were in danger, and the fireys turned up with the hose? Is anyone going to care whether they're vaccinated or not? So, you know, I am very sympathetic to some of the causes that these people bring on. But when you've got police officers who are just saying, can I please see your licence? And why don't you have number plates on your car? And these people think that they don't have to answer to the law. That's really dangerous because you've got people out there who believe these nutters and then they find themselves being arrested. We had a case in New South Wales where the police officer said, if you don't open up the door, if you don't show me your licence, I'll smash the window. They ended up smashing the window. Some people have been convinced that they don't have to pay their mortgage or they don't have to pay their council rates or they don't have to pay tax. So guess what? Then the tax office, the council, the bank comes after you. Some people have ended up in jail. Other people have ended up homeless. So I've just been warning people to be very careful about who they believe from this movement.
Doc, this has been absolutely enthralling, and we're looking forward to you setting up an interview between Don and Mrs. Spears, or Ms. Spears.
Well, what I'll do...
Don won't have to send the questions through, will he?
No, because she wouldn't be able to understand them. So what I'll do, I will put in a formal request and I will seek an answer and I will reveal that answer when I join you next.
In a fortnight, Don.
Hey,
Doc.
Ben, just other Doc here, just quickly, how you doing?
Hey, Doc.
How's the legalised cannabis party going in Sydney? Any movement down there?
In fact, I can tell you on the radio show, on my show on 2GB, either tomorrow or Friday,
Yep.
I've got Lucy Haslam coming on now.
So it's Medicinal Cannabis Awareness
Lucy,
Week. Yeah, I was just having a chat with
mate,
about her story. She's a ripper.
She lost her son, and she and he were great advocates in trying to break down some of the laws surrounding medicinal cannabis. So I've got Lucy on the show either tomorrow or Friday at 7:15 for anyone who tunes in. Do you know you guys have sent me a few listeners on the radio show? Do you know that?
Well, we only reach a small number of people. Podbean say we're going very successful. Podbean love us because they say we are huge.
Yeah, but you know the funny thing is that on the text message line, I get live text coming through on the show. We get these texts saying, "Good stuff, Doc." And so the moment they say that, I know that they are, you cannot be serious listeners. So, mate, you guys have got a hell of a reach, and I think you guys have boosted my profile.
Oh, yeah. Now, Doc, can I just tell you, Don pulls pens apart here religiously, and I've run out of
so annoying.
No, so a friend of ours, Dr. Barney McCusker, bought a little metal ring thing that they're a puzzle, and you got to try and separate them and put them together. Doc Stewart here has pulled it apart and put it together 6 times while you've been speaking. I've done it 5 times. Don spent an hour and a half trying to get the rings apart, and he still can't get them apart, but it's saved my stationery, my pens. He cannot get them apart. It's an extraordinary
Well, you
puzzle.
know what?
So
Don thinks on a much higher level than you guys. So you know, simple little puzzles like that, he's not going to be challenged by it. He's more of a Rain Man kind of character from, you know, Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise. So if you dropped 1,000 toothpicks on the ground, he'd be able to count them without even going through them. He is one of the smartest people on planet Earth, Don Scott, and that's why those, you know, basic kind of puzzles and things like that, his brain is just too complex to deal with them, right, Don?
Doc, on that notice of extreme,
Hello?
on that note of extreme shit, we'll terminate.
I love you all.
Good on
See
you,
you,
Doc.
Doc.
You start.
Bye.
Bye. Now, right. Let's get. He's off. Now I didn't have to
Can
sound
I-
up on his phone. Yeah, go ahead.
Now, can I run something past 4 people that are sitting at the microphones here?
Well, hurry up because we got our interview here. And
Joffa Korf, who was the cheerleader at the Collingwood Football Club, got a
Took his
lot
jacket
of,
off too early at
yes,
that grand final.
Anyway,
West Coast.
he received a lot of notoriety. Has just received a suspended sentence for sexually abusing a 14-year-old boy because he pleaded guilty and because of his contribution to society. Would anybody else go to jail?
because he's a because he's a Collingwood supporter.
Well, I just told because he pleaded guilty and because of his contribution to society, he escapes a jail penalty for abusing a 14-year-old boy.
It's ridiculous.
Well, have you got any comment?
Well, contribute. What did they say he contributed to society doing? Wearing a gold jacket. I don't know
how much you contribute to society. If you're playing with young boys, you go, sorry, doesn't matter what you contribute to society, in my opinion. That's, see you later.
Well, they drew and quartered George Pell. He didn't play with anyone. So it was a set. So he was acquitted of doing any of that. I think. Well,
7-zip the High Court of Australia.
Thank you, Doc. John is 7-zip the High Court of Australia. So maybe Joffa should have. Well, Joffa's got off, hasn't he? Phoebe, is anything else before we?
I actually want to change the topic
hurry up,
altogether.
because we've got
I want to ask you a much lighter question. So last week, Raquel Welch passed away.
Oh yeah.
A very, very famous figure in the entertainment industry. One of the true. I know it's politically incorrect to say this in this day and age, but one of the sex symbols of the 60s and the 70s, and I suppose also the 80s. And Sam, did you ever meet her?
He's blushing. What's going on?
Well, I've got a photograph of me and Raquel Welch.
And you don't remember it.
Tell the real story, Sam. Otherwise, I will.
Give me.
So Phoebe rings me up and she said, Sam, your friend has died, more or less. And I said, yeah, who's that? She said, Raquel Welch. I said, yeah, why is she a friend of mine? She said, well, I've got a photo of you.
You told me you'd never met her.
I said, I've never met her. I don't know. I know who she is. And she said, well, Phoebe said, well, that's extraordinary. She said, let me send you a photo. And there's me with a bow tie with my
Was that in your Coke days?
Don, let Sam tell the story.
Coke days. I was on cocaine when I said I couldn't remember meeting it. Do I look as though I'm on cocaine there?
Show me.
Do I? That's extra. How do you know if someone's on cocaine? By the look of them.
Yeah, very intense. Just look.
Intense. I'm
Yep.
standing there with one of the great Phoebe says the great sex symbols. I couldn't remember meeting her, and Max Markson said I went to a function. We auctioned the Olympic torch off, did we, or
Yes.
something? I have no
Worse-
recollection of that at all.
Can I say worse than this? You hosted the function. So not only do you not remember meeting her,
I think
you
Don-
actually hosted a function with Raquel Welch in Raquel's honour at Crown in the year 2000. And prior to the lunch, prior to the dinner, I should say, it was a dinner at Crown with Raquel Welch that Sam hosted. Prior to the dinner, you had lunch with her.
I think Don's onto something. I reckon I must have been shit-faced. I must have been drug-fucked. I'm sorry. I have no recollection of that at all. That is Don, but what a great photo. I'll say that she was a very good friend of mine too. Look at her, isn't she? Yeah.
Well, what I can say is for most people, it would be a memorable experience
Well,
meeting
why-
Raquel Welch with Sam. It doesn't even register.
When's that, 2000?
Year 2000, year 2001, somewhere around that time.
Why don't I remember that? We look a nice couple there.
Yeah, you look lovely.
Oh,
Yes.
Well, now look, Phoebe, we're going to. Why'd you take so long to get here?
Oh, because I was just finishing.
What are you?
I've got a
doing?
story I'm writing. I'm sitting here writing a story off my laptop while
On
I'm
what?
not telling you, and then
Right.
I've got to quickly jump on the phone and do a meeting as well. So it's a busy old morning, Sam, for everyone.
As we finish this segment and get on to speaking to Peter Frost, Don has finally, after an hour and 40 minutes, got the two rings apart. Put them together again. That should see you through to lunchtime. That's it.